And I'd like to welcome you to the May 18th, 2022 Fire Commission meeting. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, with roll call tonight, our chair, Jerry Bringard, is not here. Kelsey, Corneffel, Kolblack, O'Connor are here tonight. Uta, would you like to add something to the agenda?
No.
Okay, do you want to appoint me for chair for this meeting?
Yes.
Is that a motion?
I will make a motion to appoint Kurt Kolbiak to chair this meeting in the absence of Chairman Bringard.
Support by Dallas. Questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion carried. Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the April 2022 meeting. You have them in your packet. The pleasure of the commission. And if there's no modifications, a motion to approve them would be in order.
So moved.
By Uta, is there support? Support by Kurt. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion carried. Expenses. Rusty.
As you can see, our expenses are started the first quarter. We're in the first month of that. Nothing unusual. Again, all bills are normal for running the fire department, and you have everything there up until April 30th. Any questions?
If there's no questions with regards to the expense of, just move to approve the expense report as presented by the chief.
Move.
Moved by Dallas. Is there support? Support by Uta. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion carried. All right, we have a few items under discussion. Number one, chief's report. Chief?
Number of calls are up again. So far this year, we've had 232 EMS calls, 21 fire calls, 36 of which have been at night. Our call volume's going up and up and up. When I first came on, I think we did 232 calls for the year. By April. Through April. So we're getting busy. The second thing that I wanted to talk about, Chief's discussion. Thank you. The second thing I wanted to talk about, number of calls are up, is the Firefighter Training Council has issued a mandate. We have some stricter trainings that are coming down the pike and are going into effect October 1st of 2022. The state of Michigan are revamping all the rules for training for firefighters in the state of Michigan. They are tripling or quadrupling the requirements that we have to do to stay certified as firefighters in the state of Michigan, and their rules that we have to do, the requirements that are put on not only the firefighters, they have to have so many hours of continuing ed now, and it has to be through the Firefighter Training Council's courses. All that paperwork has to be submitted ahead of time. The officers have to have extra training as well. If you're a fire investigator, you have to have training for that. And this was all discussed this morning at the fire chiefs meeting for Downriver. One of the fire chiefs behind me said with all his certifications with these new rules, he he has to have 286 hours of continuing education per year just to keep his certifications that he has. Another chief from south of us stated that these new training rules are very difficult on his department. He's got a volunteer fire department, and it's going to make it very difficult for him to keep personnel and keep everyone certified per the state. He's wondering, how he's going to do it. And the person from the state of Michigan stated that these rules that are in effect have a lot of teeth. This is not optional. We have to do this. This goes into effect October 1st. It's changing the entire dynamics of the training for fire departments. So we're going to have quite a bit of work to do.
Rusty, with regards to additional training, is it in your budget going into 2021 to ramp up training in that way?
No, it's not currently, and we're going to need additional funding to meet the requirements for the state.
Okay.
Another item that is on the chief's report, we're talking about foam. We talked about it again this morning at the chief's meeting. All the B foam is gone. Anything with PFAS is gone. And we had to get rid of and pay to have all our B foam disposed of, as we talked about in the last meetings. Now there's a requirement going out there that all the firefighters in the state of Michigan have to watch this video on the use of B-type foam, and it's mandatory that they do that. We do have foam in Grosse Seal. It's A-type. The type of foam that we use is called, I got it back here, National Green, and that foam does not contain PFAS, universal green. So we're going to have to buy some more of that for what we had to get rid of with the B-type foam that was used on gasoline fires, things like that, marinas, etc. The next item on the list is the Joe Miller scholarships.
Excuse me. Sorry, Chief, sorry. While we're still on the subject, will you be able to, in the next week or so, provide us a figure for the additional training costs that you need to cover this budget year? So I can take that to our finance director and our supervisor and manager so that we can find a way to cover that.
I'm going to research into it, and yes.
It's a good heads up, but that'll be a number, a ballpark figure even, that we can give them so that we can make sure, and perhaps there is some money in that COVID funding that we can use for all this additional training. But we'll have to make sure you're covered for it so it doesn't become a burden.
Joe Miller scholarships, again, the Goodfellows and the Joe Miller scholarship was for the high school seniors. We gave out approximately 20 scholarships this year to help those seniors, and that came from the Goodfellows Fund. The Goodfellows Fund is separate, as you know, from the fire department, and that's from the monies that's donated to help people on Grosse Seal. We do have the concrete finished behind the station, finally. We got that done this week. That was part of the ongoing project that was going on back there for quite a while. And we're glad to see that finally finished. That area behind the station that was open in the drive with the concrete missing, it's been like that for 2 months. So I'm happy to see that area filled in, the concrete replaced. And that should do it.
How about the new member?
We do have a new member, Andrew Byers. He signed up. Again, we got to get him through training now, and he's got a long road ahead of him with training. So he's going to be starting the new training that is required by the state with the new provisions.
Thank you, Chief.
What about the millage?
Well, moving on to the next agenda, though, is the millage. As this commission's aware, we've had discussions about this over the last several months. I think we've all had different meetings with different players with the township. Probably it would be wise today. I know, Rusty, you've had the opportunity of meeting with the township manager and supervisor recently, and maybe Uta has some insight as well. I've had some discussions as well, but you know, in order to determine what the recommendation was from the commission and moving it forward, do you want to give us an update from your perspective as chief?
As chief, I can tell you that we've been working on a new millage. We've got to get an increase in our millage to keep the fire department going, keeping operations going. So far this year and into December of last year, I've been to 14 different meetings discussing the millage. Our costs are going up, our training costs are going up. We've sat down and we've done our projections. Without a millage increase this next year coming up, or this year, we will be running into a deficit budget by the end of next year. Costs have gone up all the way around. Everything has gone up, and training is increased. The workload has increased. The cost to run a fire department is continuing to increase, and it's something that with the current budget that we have right now, it's been in effect since 1960, I believe. We've gone as far as we could. We've put off as much as we could, but we're at the point where we can no longer put off training. We can no longer, there's no more else to cut. We have to do the millage. We have to get a millage to keep our fire department going.
Rusty, one of the things that we had talked about was trying to figure out when, if we would ask the residents for additional millage monies, when we would place it on the ballot. Do you or Uta have an update from the township offices as to what they're thinking as of right now as to potentially when it could go on the ballot?
Well, you can give your answer. We haven't talked about it together. So.
No, you and I haven't talked. I had a meeting with Derek and Jim and Dave Nadeau, Jim Bundy, and we discussed the need for the millage. We talked about putting it on the November ballot, 0.75 increase in mill like we had discussed here in the last commission meeting. If we can get that to bolster our operations budget, that'll keep us going. We're looking at our projections. We should have no problems for the next 10 years, and that'll keep us going where we can meet our training requirements, meet our operation requirements, and keep this fire department going in what the citizens require, what they request. So 0.75, hopefully it'll be on, and that's what we're shooting for, is the November ballot. And
But that hasn't, well, Uta, that hasn't been determined yet, but that was the discussion. So Uta, your thoughts?
Well, I just want to add to that. I know Chief Rodri and Chair Bringard were also meeting with Ann and with Derek and with Jim. The main concern from administration is that they want us to show where the need is, what the need is specifically, not just anecdotally saying, you know, costs are up, we need money. At our last meeting, a discussion then arose about training requirements and the pressure that is now on the budget due to new training requirements and the fact that on some level we may or may not be meeting our current training requirements. And that changed the discourse quite a bit because it's that actually affects our ability to operate the department. And so, but initially what came about in that the supervisor and the township manager thought our request to go out for millage this year was premature is because they had done an analysis with the finance director based on the current budget, what the insurance needs, and they felt that the budget was secure through the end of 2023. And to go out before, if we weren't going to collect it until 2024, may, to some voters, have seemed disingenuous. So the footing seems to be changing, and I think in order to get it on a November ballot, we have to have ballot language prepared, I think by June. And so, definitely, if that is something that we can show needs to happen, then we need to get that ballot language to the township board for approval, and then it'll be on the November ballot. One of the concerns that the board has is this being, as everyone likes to say, challenging times. There are a lot of millage requests that have to go out this year. Everybody needs and has a way of showing that what they need to operate their departments. And we have some legal requirements that need to be covered as well. And so everybody wants to be very cautious that when we put a request on the ballot, that it's something that has we can make a case for it being there, and that it does not come across as competing with another millage request for another department or another purpose. I think the fear is that we're going to put the fire millage up against recreation, or that we're going to put the ACO up against police. And so we want to be very careful. This administration wants to be very careful when we go out for these requests, that they can be, how and they can be defended. So we have a meeting coming up in June. Our commission will need to put together some language so that we can approve it and get it to the board for approval in time to be placed on the November ballot, if that's the goal.
When in June is your meeting?
It's a good question. I left my calendar in my purse. It's the second Monday in June.
June 13th?
June 13th. I think it needs to be.
So we have to get something to you by June 13th.
We have to get something to Brian Friel by then.
13th.
I think the drop dead deadline is the 14th.
Well, we got to
But
get,
the board needs to approve it.
Right, so,
but we need to get it to him so that he can make the right.
Yeah.
well, we can do that. I think, and I appreciate those comments, Uta. I think we've met with the finance director. We've met with the chief and his management team, as well as the association. We are putting together an informational piece that has both financials plus basically a narrative to show the reason why this millage money is necessary, this additional millage money is necessary. And from a timing standpoint, if we need to get language together, we have roughly 3 weeks to work that language out and get it to the deputy clerk as well as to the township board. So we'll make that our mission to make that happen.
My concern is, I know we have a recommendation from this body to put ballot language on the August ballot. Do we need to meet again to approve another motion before we take that to the township board? Will we need to schedule a special meeting?
We can do that, or what we can do is we could, the only thing that's changed from that recommendation is the date. We could say that in light of the fact that we've missed the August date, that based upon, per what you had indicated, based upon a kind of changing footings that are out there, that it's necessary to modify that motion or amend that motion and indicate that we would go out for November 2022 versus August of 2022. And I'm not quite, I don't recall, I think I brought the motion, and I believe, I'm not sure, I think Dallas actually seconded the motion. We could do that and make it simple, so at least we have something in the minutes today, so that that doesn't necessitate a special meeting. Now, again, the language that we need to put together, clearly, that's going to be through legal, through Brian. You know, the formalities of the language is something that's going to have to be worked on in a little bit more detail.
So I think Dawn can probably go back into the archives for the actual language, but we can make a motion today
Correct.
to approve amendment to that motion.
Correct.
And then get the right language.
Right.
to the-
Well, I could make the motion again, that we make a recommendation to the township board. Well, actually, we want to mimic the exact language, so
We might actually also want to make an addition to the agenda.
correct. We can do that as an action item.
Yep.
Is that a motion, Uta?
I will make a motion. Thank you.
To add a second action item under vote on the commission chair, it would be to make a recommendation to the township board as it relates to going out for additional millage monies for the November 2022 ballot. Motion by Uta, support by Dallas. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor of adding that action item, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carried. All right, moving on to commission chair. Every year, it's the obligation of the commissions to make sure that they have a chairperson. Jerry Bringard has been the chairperson dutifully for a very long time. He's indicated a desire to continue for an additional year. If Dallas brings a motion to add or to have Jerry as a chair for an additional year, is there support?
Support?
Questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carried. All right, second item would be the action item as it relates to recommending to the township board to go out in November of 2022 for an additional 0.75 millage request to the residents, contingent upon the proper language for the ballot being approved by or recommended by the clerk's office and approved by the township board.
Support?
Actually, do you want to bring that motion, Uta? I guess I can't
I'll
bring
support it.
Moved by Uta. But
I will
Support.
so move.
moved by Uta, supported by Dallas. Questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, moving on to public comment. First time since I've been on the fire commission that I've seen public comment. So gentlemen, one at a time, just state your name and address for the record, please.
150 Burning Bush.
Talk it into the mic, Lenny.
You can lift.
It's
That whole platform raises up.
8150 Burning Bush, Lenny Pedestris. Actually, I've got a very short presentation if I can find a place to plug this in. I knew I should have brought hard copies. That should be up and down. It should pop up. It should pop up. We got a ding.
I'll bring that up in a little bit.
Okay.
So, just an intro. volunteer fire department's been around since 1943. The millage were in effect in 1960 without an increase year over year. Meanwhile, the costs have continued to gone up, especially since COVID hit, and of most recent, 7 to 8% increases month over month with everything. Here's the cost of a new hire. To get somebody in, get them gear, get them trained, get them boots, turnout pants, and a couple of shirts, and then continuous ed. You're looking at 15, 16 grand. And then how many of those folks actually stay? Right? We still got to continue to grow, or at least sustain. So that comes with a cost that's greater than what I've seen ever budgeted. You take a look at the tenure of our department. 5 members over 30 years. Then we got a couple over 20 years. We got onesie-twosies with experience. You get down to less than 5 years, we have 8. You take a look at the folks on probation, we have 4. And you ask why. So in a recent class I took, I was made aware of a study done by the Association of Chiefs for Volunteers. And this is their survey. They see a large loss of potential members during the initial training. They see a small loss between training while they're still on promotion because they want to make it, right? Now, once they're in, between the 3rd and 6th year, moderate to large loss. They've been there, they checked the box, I've made a couple hundred runs, it's not for me. Well, the chief and the township has got 15 grand into a person. We get a couple of years out of them and they decide it's not for them. That happens across the nation. And then folks generally will recommit between the 15th and 18th year. And you take a look at this chart, it reflects that. So the chief has got to continue to take and recruit and try to take and retain those that come in. And he can't do it with $1,000 a year. And year over year, he's getting squeezed time and time again, but yet we got to make the calls. And you talked a lot about training. And I appreciate the folk what you guys do. But Christmas night, one of us goes through a floor, it's us not going home. We have got to be trained. We have got to practice. We take this very serious. I really hope the township does too. So reasons why we need an increase in millage. Member recruitment, onboarding, and retention. It's through the roof and it's going to continue to grow. Training and education. These are our mandates. Through a business venture today, I had a conversation by sheer happenstance with the volunteer assistant chief in a small town in North Carolina. The exact same training mandates are in North Carolina as they are here in Michigan. Mandatory and mandatory. He's got a 30-member volunteer department. And he says, I get him and I get him trained. He says, the township squeezes me. I just got to squeeze them. Now the tones go off, nobody shows. And he says, what teeth do I have? So it's a real issue. There's only so much you can squeeze out of us. And we still got to make the calls. Cost of safety, training, and education with regards to COVID, nobody budgeted for that, but it came with a cost. The cost of EMS and fire supplies, they've gone up 8% month over month. And then maintenance and fuel cost, like everything else, has trended up. Now the chief in his forecast has all these itemized with what he needs going forward. I respect the numbers he has. Now the other question is, there's always a naysayer out there. Is downsizing an option? Well, NFPA recommends 5 to 8 volunteer firefighters per 1,000. The department's running with 2 per 1,000. The ISO ratings not only affect the homeowner's insurance, but commercial insurance as well. We get below a minimum number of members, and the ISO ratings go up, and your homeowner's insurance goes up. Your commercial business insurance goes up. That's going to be a tax on the residents that they didn't vote for. And then what about if we can't respond? There's 4 guys, 8 guys. We're on a run, we can't respond. The mutual aid only works if we can go back and forth with those townships. You call them 2 or 3 times, we better be showing up at the doorstep 2 or 3 times, or they're going to be too busy. So it's very important that we keep this group together. We continue to take and keep this pipeline of 30-plus years served, but that comes with a cost. And I surely hope the township recognizes that. Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, but we appreciate you taking the time, and that would be good information that we could also pass on to the board as well.
Okay.
So make sure we have copies of it, and
Will
we'll get
do.
it to Dawn, and we'll do that.
Will do. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Explain to the public out there what you said about going to the floor on Christmas. You didn't understand we had a fire on Christmas.
Yeah, we're all at home making dinner with our families. Tones go off, we got a show. That floor was sunk 2.5 feet in the kitchen. Somebody's not trained and makes a wrong step, they're gonna go into a basement. And what if we can't get them out? You know, we've only got about 15, 20 minutes of air. And once they're out, the options get real slim.
Now the people that don't understand.
Yeah, and we had, what, 14, 18 guys there and girls? Yeah, any one of us could have fell through that floor. So this is real. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public? Tim? Just again, state your name for the record.
My name is Tim Lorraine, 7929 Siding Court. In the 16 years I've been on the department, and about the last 12 that these have been on television, I know that you don't have any public comment. I thought that was I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, so I do apologize for that, but I wanted to bring a few things to light here and made sure that everybody here understood a few things if it's not brought forward, and that the public understood also. First off, the chief did not ask me to come here. I'm here on my own volition because I think that there are some things that need to be brought to light. Like I said, I've been here 16 years. About 2 years ago, chief asked me if I'd accept a promotion as a sergeant, and I did. I worked 14 years for the city of Riverview, and actually started when I was 18 years old, leaving the high school when the Woodhaven High School and the Tones went off as a volunteer in Brownstown. So I'm 60 years old, and I've been doing this since I was 18, between Brownstown, Riverview, and Groseal Township. What I'm trying to bring across is when we talk about being a volunteer fire department, also I was elected to the board of directors for the Groseal Firefighters Association, and I felt that someone from that body should be here and letting you know about a few things that if you weren't aware of them and the public wasn't aware. You know, when you talk about a small township fire department that maybe goes out 2, maybe 3 times a week, where we tend to go out substantially more than that, sometimes 3 calls in a row, and we have to get an ambulance back from Wyandotte or South Shore very quickly to get to that 3rd call. We run a lot. We also do some things that I'm not sure that you're aware of. We are the only department, basic life support department in the state of Michigan that runs with an ECG or an EKG, electrocardiogram. And I believe that Mr. Cornaffel and Mr. Kobalak were responsible for us being able to afford those. And we obviously have to train them. In fact, we have to train on them every year just to be able to do that. We're the only basic life support fire department in the state of Michigan that can transmit an ECG to the hospital and let them read it. I had a situation about a month ago where I asked them to read the ECG that I sent, and I asked them to read it stat, and I repeated it twice. And we walked in, we went right into the room, and the attending physician looked at our patient and said, "Hey, we've got your strip here, you're having a heart attack, but we're prepared for you." So that's 10 or 15 minutes of them not bringing respiratory down, running their own ECG. They already have an idea where this block was. Another thing that we did, and I just want you to be aware of it, about 3 years ago, Chief, Wayne County was the only county except for the city of Detroit where basic rigs could not use nebulized albuterol. So myself and a couple other individuals put a program together, presented it to our Medical Control Authority, HEMS, Health Emergency Management Services, and took it to their committee twice. We then received they then approved all of Wayne County to use albuterol in a nebulized form, which is used it's a bronchodilator, helps people breathe if they have an allergic reaction or if they have pneumonia. And the basic reason that I'm here is to thank you for your support of the upcoming millage and to take that to the general council. I crunch numbers for a living. I've been in the insurance industry for 37 years. And so I look at numbers every day, and I've watched what the chief's done with the numbers, and he's done an excellent job moving things around and keeping us in business and keeping us trained. But when you're running 5 times as many calls as you were 15 years ago with 1/3 the personnel that you had in the same time period, it gets very tiring. Don't get me wrong, there are times that I'm here for 7 days and I might only put 4 or 5 hours in at the fire department. But there are times that I'll put 60 hours in at the fire department. And as Ute, and I think she was the only one at the meeting with Mr. Budney and with Derek, I said that, you know, this has to be a passion. If it's not a passion, it's not a hobby. You're not a soccer coach that goes and has your kids for an hour on Wednesday and a game for an hour on Saturday. It means getting up in the middle of the night. It means subjecting yourself to COVID. It means dropping your clothes when you come back from an emergency run or a fire because you don't want to bring that back into the bed of your wife or near your children. It's more than just being a volunteer in some township out in, you know, outside of Alpena that has a private ambulance service that comes in and follows them in and transports. When I started at 18 years old, I was a medical first responder. It's basically a glorified Boy Scout. The training now is so intense. We have the legalities that we have to deal with. We have the moral obligation to stay on top of it. And again, I want to thank you because the only way we continue to do that is if this council, this commission and council support language for a millage. And I really do appreciate it. I know what it's going to do to my taxes. I figured it out, and I get 3 tax bills from Groseal Township. But it's worth every penny of it because I know what the value of the dollar is for what we provide. Again, I just wanted to thank you for your support and the support of the chief and the support of this millage, and hopefully council will have the same, will have the same rigor behind them to put this through, and to give the public a chance, to decide what they want to pay their tax dollars for. One other item that I think that should be brought up is that we had a member have a 30-year anniversary. David Lawler had a 30-year anniversary this month, and I think that should be recognized too. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, bringing it back to the table. Anything else from the table?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Dallas to adjourn. Is there support? Supported by Kurt. Questions, comments? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried. Thank you and have a good evening.